My name is John Jags, and today I want to share with you 5 tips for illustrators on how to either improve your motion design or give better deliverables to motion design studios and help them with animation stuff. Without further ado, let's dive right into After Effects and talk about those 5 tips. Alright, first tip number 1 is whenever you are starting an illustration project and you know that this is going to be some sort of print product, ask them, are you going to be doing marketing? Are you going to be doing Instagram posts or promos or anything? And if they say yes, because they will likely say yes, ask them, what are they posting it to? Are they posting it to just Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook? And why would you ask these things? Well, this dramatically changes how you might have to edit some of that content or illustrate some of that content. So for Instagram, you generally work with a 1080 by 1080 artboard. Now, YouTube, on the other hand, is HD, so a 16 by 9 aspect ratio versus a 1 by 1. Amazon is the same thing. Netflix is different. Maybe they need a Facebook banner. So think about it like this. You need a wide format, a vertical format, and a square format. Now, that doesn't mean you have to do 3 different pieces of art every single time, but if you start wider but build your composition around a square format, but you have stuff for a wide format, it will help your client or the motion design in the long run. So always ask the specs. Do you need a 1080 by 1080 only? Is this only gonna go in the product? Or hey, can I also provide you a wide background so that you can post this on as a Facebook banner or Netflix banner or a YouTube video? So always ask about the specs first and deliver on those specs. Tip number 2, always work in layers. So if you ever have a subject or something in your scene that there needs to be something behind it, then think about that. So I'm gonna use the front scene of Sweetlandia as an example. Now, the art came just as beautiful as it could be. I loved it, but there are some extra elements that I just didn't have that we needed to create in post as a motion designer. So let's take a look at that. We have first the background, and if we double click this and we click on the 50% here, we can fit our window. This is the background that we ended up creating. Now, if we right click and reveal an explorer, we can see on, let's just say, front of box PNG. This is obviously a square, and there's definitely some things that just weren't here in the original file. Now, the illustrator who helped me with this, both Kristen Maslanka and Madison Johnson, very awesome artists, they helped me create this so that we could better hit that. But the biggest thing is I needed these backgrounds and these buildings and what's behind those buildings, and then I needed those separated. So let's look at the boats now. We have a separate composition for just the little boats, and thinking about that so that I can animate the little boats just like moving left to right. Let's keep looking. There's a little plane that we added to the scene just to add a little bit extra detail. Then there's the lake, which is just a PNG with a feathered edge, so to speak. And we ended up doing some extra cloning and retouching it in After Effects. But then we can double click on the midground, and if we go into the main composition and scroll through, solo that, the midground is right there. Now if we solo the lake, there's the lake. And then if we just start poking the eyes out, we can start rebuilding the scene really quick. So, background, other background. Oh, let's turn the camera back on so we have the right composition. Boop. Okay, so background is there. Then we have the plane. Then we have the lake. Then we have the midground. Then we have the trees. Then we have the other set of buildings. Then we have more sets of buildings. And then we have even more sets of buildings duplicated. Then we have foreground buildings. Then we have super collage, so some line stuff. Then we have more foreground buildings, cars, and in there, in the car section, we have the little cars animating and moving across the screen. And then we have the sign. Where is the sign? Aha, there's the sign on that. Then we have the hills in the foreground. And then we have some particles and the logo. And some clouds that we have for a transition. But what I'm trying to say is make sure you separate things out into layers. Do not flatten out anything, especially if you know that your client or you or a motion designer is eventually going to be animating some of this stuff in the long run. Tip number 3 is make things wider or slightly bigger than they need to be, because then we can scale them down in post. And what I mean by that is if we want to do some slight camera movement in the scene, I want to be able to punch in and crop in a little bit and then move a camera around. So let's look at this little scene of Marshmallow Mountain from Sweetlandia. And if we just play it through, let's turn off motion blur so it's not quite as intense. And we have some very, very, very subtle sort of camera movement along the scene. And the way we did that is with an After Effects camera. So what we did is we hit U on the keyboard and the camera is just moving very slowly from left to right. And with that, it allows us to make the scene a little bit more dynamic. If we didn't have this camera, or the camera was just static, it just feels a little flat. Now, obviously, the composition got a little funky because I had to punch in and crop in a little bit on this, but it allowed me to effectively get more out of the scene by making it a little bit wider or being able to crop in. So if you make things a little bit bigger, then it allows the motion designer to really get in close and personal and look at the details of things without having to like scale things up and break the resolution. All right, tip number 4, think about whatever's moving in your scene. If you have something moving in your illustration, in the composition, make sure you isolate that. And the biggest demo I can show here is the cinnamon roll from the roller coaster scene in this promo. So if you look very closely, that cinnamon roll is actually spinning. And the way we did that is that object was isolated and then we just added some basic spinning keyframes to it, and the icing is actually separated from all the other things. So I could hypothetically do some extra animation to this if I wanted to. I didn't need to. Sometimes I think less is more, but thank you very much, Madison, for helping me with that part, separating that stuff, because it could have been very useful. So separate those things, separate anything that would be moving, so then you can eventually move it later. And tip number 5, make sprites. Now, what are sprites? That's a term that, to an extent, I have made up, but it's effectively like little icons or elements from the illustration that you can just decorate the scene with. And what I mean by that is a key component in Sweetlandia is donuts. And when it comes to donuts, being able to have an icon that is pretty high res that I can scale up and scale down, on the cards it's pretty small. But being able to take that separately and like put a bunch in the scene will allow me to do extra things with creating extra elements of the brand in the video overall. So donut here, donut on the cards, and if we scroll to my favorite scene, it's raining donuts, and that's because we pulled one of the donuts from the scene and was able to just like use it a lot for particle systems or backgrounds or anything like that. And all that is if we go in here and donut controller, there's a donut symbol, reveal layer source and project, and that's at 3500 by 3500. But a general rule of thumb with your icons and sprites is to make 2 versions. One, at least at 1080 by 1080, because it's nice and big, and most of the time we're watching this on screens anyways. And then the second one is at 250 by 250. And if you're using a plugin like Trapcode Particular, they like small icons like that because it doesn't bog down your system. So the 2 key things for sprites is make them, think about elements in your illustration that happen repeatedly, like a donut or whatever else, and then make 2 versions, 1080 by 1080 and 250 by 250. All right, and one little bonus tip, if you are doing line art for your illustrations, please separate that from your color layer. And what that will allow the animator to do is do some fancy animation stuff, like if you've seen Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, they have a little sort of illustration happening of the house coming on, followed by the colors and whatnot. And that's what we did here with this example. So what I did through some After Effects magic, I took the house that looked like this, and then through After Effects magic, we were able to do this. Now, if I had the line art, it would have been a lot easier and wouldn't take as long to render, but we were able to get a cool effect with that. And what that translates to is cool transitions like this.
As you build, you'll earn donuts from Mayor McSweet. If you earn the most donuts after 3 rounds, you'll be crowned the best city planner of Sweetlandia.
And those are my 5, I guess 6 tips now on how to do some extra illustration stuff for motion design, After Effects, or digital delivery. I hope this was useful to you. If it was, let me know in the comment section down below, or you have questions, comments, concerns, whatever else. Comment section is down there for that as well. Or if you want, you can hit me up on Instagram at JohnJagsNE. I'll send you back a video message and we can have a chat if you have any questions or you just want to hang out. If you want to join the party, hit that subscribe button or even the notification bell. It lets me know that I'm creating stuff that is valuable to you and your life, and I can hopefully help you learn some things along the way. I even post some vlogs if time permits. But I will leave it there. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, make sure to eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight and you will make some gains. Goodbye, my friends. Bye!